I'm going to marry Grayson Blackwell in exactly 72 hours, and the only thing I know about my future husband is that he hates me as much as I hate him. 3 days before the wedding, I still thought my life made sense. Vivian Sterling! My grandmother's voice echoed through the hallway of the Sterling mansion like a war siren. Get down here now! I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and mentally marked another day on my imaginary calendar of moments when I considered running away to Tibet. We were on day 237. I descended the stairs of the house where I grew up with all the dignity I could muster, considering I was wearing unicorn pajamas and had toothpaste on the corner of my mouth. It was Saturday, 10 in the morning, and I had every right to look like this. Good morning, Grandma Eleanor, I greeted with fake sweetness. What a pleasure to see you so energized. My grandmother, a 75-year-old woman with more venom than a cobra and twice the elegance, stared at me with those penetrating blue eyes that made millionaire CEOs tremble. But I was her granddaughter. I had immunity, or at least I thought I did. Sit, she ordered, pointing to the green velvet sofa in the sitting room. That's when I noticed we weren't alone. My father, Thomas Sterling, was sitting in the armchair with an expression I'd only seen twice in my life. When the company almost went bankrupt in 2020, and when my mother announced she wanted another child at 45. Basically, existential panic. What happened? I asked, feeling my stomach sink. Did someone die? Worse, my grandmother replied, and I didn't know there was anything worse than death on her dramatic scale. Sterling Investments is on the verge of bankruptcy. The world stopped. What? My father finally spoke, his voice coming out hoarse. That investment in Korea. It was fraud, Viv. We lost everything. 200 million. 200 million. I felt my mouth go dry. But we have other investments, properties, Grandma's portfolio. All compromised, Grandma Eleanor interrupted, and for the first time in my life I saw fear in her eyes. Creditors will come, lawsuits. In 6 months we'll have nothing left. The mansion, the companies, everything will go to auction. My brain refused to process the information. The Sterlings were old money aristocracy. My great-grandfather built an empire. How could we lose everything like this? There's a solution, my grandmother said, and her tone made me want to run. Grandma, the Blackwells have offered help. I blinked several times. The Blackwells? I repeated, certain I'd misheard. The Blackwell family? Those Blackwells? Yes. The same Blackwells you spend every Christmas talking trash about? The nouveau riche without class Blackwells? Those Blackwells? My grandmother pressed her lips into a thin line. Circumstances have changed. Apparently, I murmured. My father stood up, began pacing back and forth. When he did that, it meant the bomb hadn't completely dropped yet. Grayson Blackwell made a proposal, he said, avoiding my gaze. He'll pay all our debts, cover the losses, and still invest additional capital in the company. That's amazing, I ventured, confused. Why does it feel like you're telling me you sold my soul? Silence. Oh no. You didn't sell my soul, did you? Not exactly, Grandma Eleanor responded. Just your matrimonial future. I stood up so fast I got dizzy. You're kidding me. Viv, let me explain. Explain what, Dad? That you sold your daughter like cattle? Nobody sold anybody, he protested. It's a business arrangement. Arranged marriages are common in traditional families. In the 19th century. Vivian, control that tone, Grandma Eleanor ordered. Control my tone? Control my tone? I was bordering on hysteria. You just told me you planned my wedding without consulting me. With Grayson Blackwell, my father completed, as if the name were some kind of consolation prize. Grayson Blackwell, the most infuriating, arrogant, and insufferable man I'd ever had the displeasure of meeting. No, I said with all the firmness I could muster. Absolutely not. I'd rather throw myself in front of a bus. Dramatic. Grandma muttered. I learned from the best, I screamed, pointing at her. My father sighed, ran his hand through his graying hair. Viv, sweetheart, I know it's a lot to process. A lot to process? Dad? You're asking me to marry the man I publicly refused to shake hands with at last year's charity gala. Ah, yes, that glorious night. The memory came with cinematic clarity. Grayson Blackwell, in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, extending his hand to me with that smug smile. And me, in my best Valentino dress, simply looking at his hand as if it were radioactive, turning my back and walking away. The gossip lasted weeks. He remembers that, I said. He definitely remembers. Why the hell would he agree to marry me? My father and grandmother exchanged a look. Because, Grandma Eleanor finally said, his condition was exactly that. He'd pay everything, save the family, but only if he married you. The world spun. What? Apparently, my father continued, uncomfortable, he's always had interest in you. Interest? My voice came out in a squeak. He looks at me like I'm an annoying insect. Maybe that's how he shows interest, Grandma suggested. That's sick. It's efficient, she corrected, and advantageous for us. I fell back onto the sofa, my head spinning. I can't believe we're having this conversation. I can't believe you accepted this without talking to me first. We didn't have a choice, dear, my father said softly. It was this, or lose everything. And when I say everything, I include your mother's treatment. My heart stopped. My mother, her autoimmune disease, the expensive medications, the experimental treatments, that bastard. My father knew exactly which string to pull. This is emotional manipulation, I whispered. It's the truth, he replied, and I saw tears in his eyes. Without the Blackwell's money, we won't be able to maintain her health insurance. The medications alone cost $40,000 a month, Viv. I closed my eyes, breathed, once, twice, 3 times. How long? I asked, my voice coming out dead. The wedding is in 3 days, Grandma Eleanor replied. Everything's already been arranged. 3 days? He insisted, said the more time you had to think, the greater the chance you'd run. Smart, I muttered bitterly. The bastard knows me well. So you agree? My father asked, hopeful. I looked at him, at my grandmother, at the house where I grew up, full of memories and family history. I thought of my mother, fragile but smiling, always saying I should marry for love. Well, Mom, sorry to disappoint. I have conditions, I declared. Grandma Eleanor raised an eyebrow. You're not in a position to negotiate, dear. Watch me, I shot back. First, I won't pretend to love this man. Second, I'll keep my own bank account and financial independence. Third, amicable divorce in 2 years, no drama, no media. 3 years, Grandma counter-proposed, and you need to at least try to appear civilized with him in public. 2.5 years, and I promise not to throw drinks at him at social events. That's the best I can offer. My father looked somewhere between laughter and tears. Viv, will you at least meet with him before the wedding? Why? I asked acidly. To exchange vows of eternal hatred? At that moment, the sitting room door opened, and Grayson Blackwell walked in. Because of course he walked in. The universe hated my sanity. He was even more insufferably handsome than I remembered. Perfectly styled black hair, amber eyes that seemed to see through people, a jawline sculpted by some sadistic artist determined to make women sigh. The charcoal gray suit probably cost more than my car. I hated him. I hope I'm not interrupting, he said, and his voice was velvet over steel. But I heard screaming and figured my fiancé had been informed of the good news. My fiancé. The words made me want to vomit. Blackwell, I greeted with Arctic coldness. What a devastating surprise. His lips curved into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Sterling, he returned, my last name sounding like a poisoned caress. Always a questionable pleasure. You two, Grandma Eleanor intervened, need to at least try civility. We're being civilized, Mrs. Sterling, Grayson replied, but his eyes remained fixed on me. Aren't we, darling? Darling. He called me darling with the same tone one uses to say plague. Extremely, I forced through clenched teeth. Great, my father said, clearly wanting to escape. So, we'll leave you two to talk. No, I yelled, but it was too late. My father and Grandma Eleanor were already leaving, abandoning me alone with the man I'd have to call husband in 72 hours. Grayson Blackwell approached, and I instinctively took a step back. He noticed. Of course he noticed. Those predator eyes didn't miss anything. Afraid, Vivian? He asked softly. Of you? I laughed without humor. Please, I'm just maintaining safe distance from venomous snakes. What a coincidence, he replied, stopping just 3 feet from me. I think the same about kittens with claws. Don't call me kitten. Then stop hissing at me. I took a deep breath, trying to control the urge to punch him. Why are you doing this? I finally asked. Why marry me? You could have any woman. But I don't want any woman, he said, and something dangerous gleamed in his eyes. I want the only woman in all of New York who had the courage to publicly reject me. That's sick. It's honest, he corrected. Something you should appreciate, considering you apparently value frankness over politeness. Touché. Still doesn't explain why you want to tie yourself to someone who clearly detests you. Grayson tilted his head, studying me as if I were a particularly interesting puzzle. Who said it's forever? He finally replied. You yourself negotiated 2.5 years. I can survive 2.5 years of you. The way he said you should be illegal. Feelings mutual, I shot back. Great. Then we're in agreement. We'll never agree on anything. Except on matrimony, apparently. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something at him. I wanted to wake up and discover this was all a horrible nightmare. Instead, I extended my hand. Business arrangement, I declared. 2.5 years, public appearances, separate lives in private. No feelings, no expectations, no drama. Grayson looked at my hand, then at my face. Slowly, he wrapped his hand around mine, and the touch was pure electric shock. No feelings, he agreed, his voice low and dangerous. It'll be absolutely easy to hate you for the next 2.5 years, Vivian Sterling. Soon to be Vivian Blackwell, I corrected bitterly. God have mercy on my soul. On both of us, he murmured. And there, with our hands still joined and all the hatred in the world between us, we sealed the stupidest deal of our lives, marrying the enemy. What could go wrong? The bridal boutique on Fifth Avenue looked like a wedding cake exploded inside a diamond mine. Everything was white, sparkly, and aggressively romantic. I hated every inch of it. Vivian, darling, you need to at least try to smile, my mother said from her wheelchair, looking frailer than I'd seen her in months. It's your wedding day. Well, wedding weekend. I'm smiling, Mom. I lied through my clenched jaw. This is my happy face. You look like you're about to murder someone, my younger sister Sloane observed cheerfully, scrolling through her phone. Very Bride of Frankenstein chic. I shot her a death glare, but she just grinned. At 19, Sloane had mastered the art of being infuriatingly perceptive and completely shameless about it. Girls, Mom said wearily, and guilt immediately washed over me. This stress wasn't good for her. Sorry, Mom, I softened, kneeling beside her wheelchair. I'll behave. I promise. No, you won't, Sloane muttered, but she was smiling. The boutique owner, a woman named Margot with impossibly high cheekbones and an accent I couldn't place, swept into the room with an armful of white fabric. Now, Miss Sterling, I have selected the perfect dress for your special day. It is... The one on the mannequin by the window, I interrupted. I want that one. Everyone turned to look. The dress I'd pointed to was stunning in its simplicity. A sleek silk column dress with a high neck, long sleeves, and a scandalously low back. No lace, no ruffles, no princess fantasy. Just clean lines and attitude. Margot's face fell. But that is not really a wedding dress, mademoiselle. It is more for a cocktail party. Perhaps? We have much more appropriate... That one, I repeated firmly. Or I'm getting married in jeans. My mother sighed but nodded. She knew when I'd made up my mind. 20 minutes later, I stood in front of the three-way mirror, and even I had to admit, I looked incredible. The dress hugged every curve, the low back was elegant rather than trashy, and the high neck somehow made me look both sophisticated and dangerous. Perfect for marrying your enemy. You look beautiful, sweetheart, Mom said, and I saw tears in her eyes. Mom, don't cry. You'll make me cry, and I have a reputation to maintain. Too late, Sloane said, taking a picture with her phone. You're totally tearing up. I am not. The boutique door chimed, and a familiar voice made every muscle in my body tense. I hope I'm not interrupting the bonding moment. Grayson Blackwell stood in the doorway, looking unfairly handsome in dark jeans and a black sweater. His eyes found me in the mirror, and something flickered across his face before the mask returned. What are you doing here? I demanded. Isn't it bad luck for the groom to see the dress? Only if we believe in luck, he replied smoothly, walking closer. And superstition, which we don't. We don't believe in love either, apparently, I shot back. Vivian, my mother warned softly. Grayson's lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. He stopped a few feet away, his gaze traveling slowly from my head to my toes and back up again. The look was so intense, I felt it like a physical touch. You look, he started. Don't, I interrupted. Whatever you're about to say, just don't. I was going to say you look like you're ready for battle rather than a wedding. Same thing, isn't it? This time he did smile, and damn him, it transformed his entire face. For a split second I saw what other women saw. The charm, the magnetism, the dangerous appeal. Then I remembered I hated him. I actually came to discuss living arrangements, he said, all business now. We need to decide where we're staying after the wedding. Separately, I answered immediately. You stay at your place, I stay at mine. Not possible. The contract requires we maintain the appearance of a real marriage. That means cohabitation. The contract? I whirled to face him directly, no longer caring about the dress. You made a contract? Your grandmother's lawyer did, actually. Very thorough woman. Apparently, she doesn't trust either of us to honor our word without legal documentation. He wasn't wrong. That sounded exactly like Grandma Eleanor. Fine, I bit out. Your place or mine? Mine is larger. Mine has better light. Mine has a home gym. Mine has a library. We stared at each other, locked in the most ridiculous standoff in history. Children, my mother intervened gently. Perhaps you could... Compromise? Spend weekdays at one place, weekends at another? No, Grayson and I said simultaneously, then glared at each other for jinxing. My penthouse has 3 spare bedrooms, he finally said. You can have your own space, your own bathroom. Hell, your own floor if you want it. We don't have to see each other except when necessary. It was a reasonable offer. Annoyingly reasonable. What about my things? I asked suspiciously. My books, my clothes, I'll have everything moved. Professional movers, careful packing, whatever you need. And my cat? Grayson blinked. You have a cat? Mr. Darcy. He's a Persian. Very dignified. Hates everyone. Sounds like his owner, Grayson muttered. But I caught the amusement in his voice. Fine. The cat can come. You're allergic, aren't you? Terribly. I smiled, genuinely smiled, for the first time since this nightmare began. Then Mr. Darcy definitely comes. You're evil, he said, but there was something almost like respect in his eyes. Has anyone ever told you that? Only you. Repeatedly. Good. Wouldn't want you getting a big head about it. Sloane, who had been watching this entire exchange like a tennis match, suddenly spoke up. You two are either going to kill each other or fall madly in love. There's no in between. Kill each other, Grayson and I said in perfect unison. Definitely kill each other, I added for emphasis. Agreed, he confirmed. But when our eyes met in the mirror, something crackled in the air between us. Electric, dangerous, and entirely unwelcome. I looked away first. So, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. Your penthouse, my books, and my vindictive cat. Separate floors. No unnecessary interaction. Perfect, Grayson agreed. I'll have my assistant coordinate with yours. I don't have an assistant. You do now. Consider it a wedding present. Before I could protest, he was already heading for the door. Grayson, I called out, surprising myself. He stopped, turned. Why are you really doing this? And don't give me that line about me being the one who rejected you. That's not enough reason to tie yourself down for 2.5 years. For a long moment, he just looked at me. Really looked at me, like he was trying to decide how much truth to share. Maybe I'm just curious, he finally said, to see if the woman who had the audacity to humiliate me in front of Manhattan's elite is as fascinating as I think she is, or as infuriating. I'm definitely the latter. I'm counting on it, Sterling. And then he was gone, leaving me standing in a wedding dress, my heart racing for reasons I absolutely refused to examine. Well, Sloane said into the silence, that was the most unromantic thing I've ever witnessed. Shut up, I muttered, but my cheeks were burning. My mother wheeled closer, took my hand. Sweetheart, she said softly, I know this isn't what you wanted, but maybe it won't be as terrible as you think. I looked at my reflection, a bride in a battle-ready dress, about to marry a man who represented everything I stood against. 2.5 years, Mom, I whispered. I can survive anything for 2.5 years. Even if that anything was Grayson Blackwell and his infuriating amber eyes. Even if that anything was starting to feel less like a prison sentence and more like something I couldn't quite name. God help me. The Sterling Club was Manhattan's most exclusive venue, where old money went to remind new money of its place. Tonight, it was hosting the rehearsal dinner for a wedding nobody wanted, but everyone would attend. I arrived deliberately late, a small rebellion, wearing a black dress that Grandma Eleanor would definitely call inappropriate for a bride. Perfect. The moment I walked into the private dining room, conversations stuttered to a halt. 50 pairs of eyes turned toward me, and I felt the weight of their judgment, their curiosity, their barely concealed glee at the drama. Then I saw him. Grayson stood near the bar, surrounded by a group of men in expensive suits, and the sight of him literally made me pause mid-step. He wore all black, shirt, slacks, even his tie, and looked like sin personified. When his eyes found mine across the room, the amber in them seemed to glow. He excused himself from his group and walked toward me with the grace of a predator. Everyone watched. Of course they watched. This was better than reality TV. You're late, he said when he reached me, his voice low enough that only I could hear. You're observant, I replied sweetly. That must be why you're so successful. And you're wearing black to your own rehearsal dinner. Very subtle statement. I thought it matched my mood. You know, dark and foreboding. His lips twitched. You look stunning, by the way. Even if you're dressed for a funeral. The compliment caught me off guard, and I hated that I felt a flutter in my stomach. Are you feeling all right? That almost sounded sincere. I'm capable of sincerity, Vivian. I just reserve it for special occasions. And this qualifies? You tell me. He offered his arm. Shall we pretend to be a happy couple for the next 3 hours? I stared at his arm like it might bite me. Do we have to? Unless you want your grandmother to have an aneurysm. Yes. Fair point. I slipped my hand through his arm, and the solid warmth of him sent an unwelcome shiver through me. His muscles tensed slightly under my touch. Apparently, I wasn't the only one affected. "Smile," he murmured as we walked toward the crowd. "You look like you're being led to the guillotine." "Aren't I? At least the guillotine is quick. You have to endure me for 2.5 years. Despite myself, I almost laughed. Was that a joke, Blackwell? Are you actually capable of humor? Only when torturing you, Sterling. It's my new favorite hobby. We made our rounds, accepting congratulations that felt like condolences, answering questions with carefully rehearsed answers. Yes, it was a whirlwind romance. No, we're not rushing because of a pregnancy. Yes, we're very much in love. That last lie tasted particularly bitter. Dinner was served family style, which meant I had to sit next to Grayson while multiple courses arrived. His thigh pressed against mine under the table. The seating was deliberately intimate, and I swore I could feel the heat of him through the fabric of my dress. "You're tense," he observed quietly while my father gave a toast. "I wonder why," I hissed back. "Maybe because I'm being forced to marry someone I barely know?" "You know me well enough. You've hated me for 3 years. 2.5. And hate requires knowledge, Blackwell. I simply dislike you on principle." What principle is that? The principle that says men who are that arrogant, that confident, that... I stopped myself, realizing I was about to say something revealing. That what? His eyes were on me, intense and curious. "Finish the thought, Vivian." "That insufferable," I concluded lamely. "Liar." His voice was barely a whisper, but it sent shivers down my spine. "You were going to say something else." Before I could respond, Grandma Eleanor stood to give her toast. She looked regal in navy silk, every inch the society matriarch. "To Vivian and Grayson," she began, her voice carrying across the room. "Two people from two families who have complicated history. But perhaps that's what makes this union so special. They chose each other despite everything." I nearly choked on my wine. Chose. Sure. "Love," Grandma continued, and I saw the steel in her eyes even as she smiled, "is often unexpected. It arrives when we least want it, with people we least expect, and it challenges us to be better than we are." She raised her glass. "To unexpected love." "To unexpected love," the room echoed. Grayson's hand found mine under the table, his fingers threading through mine. For show, obviously. But his grip was strong, almost reassuring, and I found myself squeezing back. "Unexpected is certainly one word for it," he murmured in my ear, his breath warm against my skin. "Catastrophic is another," I replied, but my voice sounded breathless, even to my own ears. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of forced smiles and careful touches. Every time Grayson's hand grazed my back, every time he leaned close to whisper something sarcastic about a guest, every time our eyes met, it felt like playing with fire. Finally, mercifully, people began to leave. I escaped to the terrace, needing air, needing space, needing to not feel Grayson's presence like a physical weight. The November air was cold, but I welcomed it. Manhattan sparkled below, indifferent to my crisis. "Running away?" His voice came from behind me. "Breathing," I corrected without turning around. "There's a difference." He moved to stand beside me at the railing, and we stood in silence for a moment, watching the city. "My mother asked me if I love you," he said suddenly. I turned to stare at him. "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That I don't know you well enough to love you." He paused. "Or hate you, really, despite what you think." "Then why?" I asked, the question that had been burning in me since day one. "Why go through all this for someone you don't even know?" Grayson was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, softer, more vulnerable. "My father built Blackwell Industries from nothing, worked himself to death doing it. Literally. Heart attack at 52. He stared at the skyline. Everyone said he was new money, no class, no breeding. Your grandmother said it. My whole life, people like your family looked down on people like mine. Understanding dawned. This is about proving something. Maybe, or maybe. He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his eyes stole my breath. Maybe I saw a woman who didn't care about my money or my name, who looked at me like I was just a man, and not a particularly impressive one at that. I humiliated you, I whispered. You saw me, he corrected. Really saw me. Not the carefully constructed image, but the truth underneath. And you rejected it anyway. His honesty was more dangerous than any barb, any insult, because it made him human, real. Grayson, don't. He stepped back, the mask sliding back into place. We should go inside. Tomorrow's a big day, biggest mistake of our lives and all that. But as he turned to leave, I caught his hand. For what it's worth, I said quietly, I think your father would be proud of the company, of you. New money, old money. It's all just paper in the end. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe gratitude, before he nodded once and walked away. I stayed on the terrace, my heart racing, my mind spinning. Tomorrow I would marry Grayson Blackwell. And God help me, I was starting to think it might not be the worst thing that ever happened to me, just the most terrifying. The morning of my wedding, I threw up twice. Very bridal, Sloane commented from where she sat on my bathroom counter, painting her nails black, really capturing that blushing bride energy. Shut up, I groaned, rinsing my mouth. And why are you wearing black to my wedding? Solidarity. We're both mourning your freedom. I would have laughed if I wasn't so terrified. The Sterling Estates garden had been transformed into something from a fairy tale. White roses everywhere, strings of lights, even though it was 2 in the afternoon, chairs arranged in perfect rows. 300 guests would witness my doom. Mom wants to see you, Sloane said, suddenly serious. She's in the morning room. I found my mother sitting by the window, sunlight making her look almost ethereal. The disease had taken so much from her, but her smile was still the same. My beautiful girl, she said, tears already forming. Come here. I knelt beside her wheelchair, and she took my hands in her fragile ones. I know this isn't what you dreamed of, she said softly. I know you're doing this for us, for the family. But Vivian, I want you to know, if you want to run, run. We'll figure something out. Don't sacrifice your happiness for... Mom, I squeezed her hands gently. I'm not running. And who knows? Maybe Grayson and I will surprise everyone. Maybe we'll even surprise ourselves. I didn't believe it, but she needed to hear it. She pulled me into a hug that smelled like lavender and home, and I let myself be her little girl for just one more moment. Then it was time. The wedding march started, and my father offered his arm. His hands were shaking. You sure about this, princess? He whispered. Absolutely not, I whispered back. But let's do it anyway. We stepped into the garden, and the world narrowed to a single point. Grayson Blackwell, standing at the altar in a black tuxedo that should be illegal. His eyes locked on me with an intensity that made my knees weak. Every step felt like walking through water. The guests faded into blur. The music became distant. All I could see was him, watching me approach like I was something precious, something worth waiting for. When we reached the altar, my father placed my hand in Grayson's, and the touch sent electricity through my entire body. Take care of her, my father said, his voice rough. I will, Grayson replied, and he sounded like he meant it. The officiant began speaking, but I barely heard the words. I was too focused on Grayson's thumb tracing small circles on the back of my hand, a gesture so gentle it made my heart ache. The couple has chosen to write their own vows, the officiant announced, and my eyes widened. We had? Grayson went first, pulling a small card from his pocket. But when he looked at me, he put the card away. "Vivian Sterling," he began, his voice carrying across the silent garden. "3 days ago, I thought I knew exactly what this would be. A business arrangement, a transaction, 2.5 years of tolerance and separate floors." He paused, and something vulnerable flickered in his eyes. "But standing here now, looking at you in that dress, I realize I might have been wrong. Maybe this doesn't have to be a war. Maybe it could be." He seemed to struggle for words. "An adventure, a challenge. 2 people who started as enemies discovering if they could become something else." His grip on my hand tightened. "So here's my vow. I promise to be honest with you, even when it's uncomfortable. To respect your independence, even when I want to argue. To try, really try, to see past my own pride and see you. Just you. Whatever happens next, Vivian, we're in this together. No more separate corners, no more armor. Just us, figuring it out as we go." The garden was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. Or maybe it was his. We were standing that close. "Your turn," he said softly, and there was something almost like nervousness in his voice. I didn't have prepared vows, but suddenly, words were there, rising from somewhere deep and honest. "Grayson Blackwell," I began, my voice shakier than I wanted. "I've spent 3 years thinking I knew exactly who you were. Arrogant, impossible, infuriating." I saw his lips quirk. "But in 3 days, you've managed to confuse everything I thought I knew. You've been unexpected." I took a breath. "I won't promise to love you, because I don't know how yet. But I promise to try. I promise to stop looking at you like the enemy and start seeing you as my partner in this insane situation. I promise that when you're insufferable, which will be often, I'll tell you directly instead of plotting your demise." Soft laughter rippled through the crowd. "And I promise," I finished quietly, just for him, "that I'll give this a real chance. Not just for the contract or the money or the family, but because maybe, just maybe, you were right. Maybe we could surprise ourselves." The smile he gave me was genuine, reaching his eyes, transforming his entire face. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant declared. "You may kiss the bride." Grayson's hand came up to cup my face, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. "Ready for this?" he murmured. "Absolutely not," I whispered back. "Good. Me neither." And then he kissed me. It was supposed to be for show, a quick, chaste kiss for the cameras and guests. But the moment his lips touched mine, something ignited. His other hand slid to the small of my back, pulling me closer, and I gripped his lapels like they were the only thing keeping me standing. The kiss deepened, became something real and hungry and completely inappropriate for a wedding ceremony. Someone in the crowd whistled, someone else cheered. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, Grayson's eyes were dark with something dangerous. "Well," he said, his voice rough. "That was unexpected, too." "Shut up," I managed, my face burning. "Make me," he challenged with that infuriating smirk. "I hate you." "I know. I'm counting on it, wife." Wife. The word sent a thrill through me that I absolutely refused to examine. The reception was a blur of champagne, dancing, and knowing looks from guests who clearly thought they were witnessing a love story. If only they knew. But when Grayson pulled me onto the dance floor for our first dance, his hand warm and solid on my waist, I couldn't quite remember why I'd been so opposed to this. "You're a good dancer," I admitted as he spun me smoothly. "I'm good at a lot of things, Vivian. You'll discover that soon enough." Was that innuendo? Would it bother you if it was? "Everything about you bothers me." "Liar," he said again, pulling me closer until there was barely any space between us. "That kiss bothered you for completely different reasons." He was right, and I hated him for it. "This doesn't change anything," I insisted. "It was just chemistry, physical attraction, It doesn't mean... It means, he interrupted softly, his lips near my ear, that the next 2.5 years just got a lot more interesting. As the song ended and guests applauded, I looked up at my husband, God, my husband, and realized with terrifying clarity that somewhere between I do and now, the rules had changed. This wasn't just a business arrangement anymore. This was something real, and I had no idea what to do about it. Grayson's penthouse was obscenely beautiful, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, modern furniture that probably cost more than most people's houses, and enough space to house a small village. I hated that I loved it. "Your things are in the East Wing," Grayson said, loosening his tie as we entered. He'd barely spoken during the car ride from the reception, and the silence felt loaded with everything unsaid. "Third door on the left." "I'm in the West Wing, so we won't—" A loud, indignant yowl interrupted him. Mr. Darcy, my beloved Persian cat, came stalking into the living room like he owned the place. He took one look at Grayson, hissed dramatically, and wrapped himself around my legs. "Well," I said, scooping up 15 pounds of hostile fluff. "At least someone's happy to see me." Grayson's eyes were already watering. "How long does the allergic reaction usually take?" "Minutes, sometimes seconds." I smiled sweetly. "Want to pet him?" "I'd rather pet a cactus." "Mr. Darcy, meet your new roommate." I held the cat toward Grayson, who immediately stepped back. "Don't worry, he only attacks people he senses are weak." "I'm not weak, I'm sensible. That creature looks like it wants to murder me in my sleep." "He does, but he's very dignified about it." Despite everything, Grayson laughed, actually laughed, and the sound did something dangerous to my heart. "I'm going to change," he said, pulling at his collar. "These formal clothes are suffocating. There's champagne in the fridge if you want to." "I don't know. Celebrate? Toast to our mutual misery?" Tempting, but I think I'll explore my new prison first. It's a penthouse, not a prison. Remains to be seen, Blackwell. "It's Grayson," he said quietly. "We're married now. You can use my first name." Something about the way he said it, almost vulnerable, made me soften. "Grayson." His eyes darkened at the sound of his name on my lips. "Vivian." The air between us crackled with the same electricity from the ceremony, and I fled to the East Wing before I could do something stupid. My new bedroom was stunning. King-sized bed with silk sheets, a sitting area, and a bathroom that belonged in a spa. My books were already arranged on built-in shelves, my clothes unpacked and hanging in a walk-in closet the size of my old bedroom. Efficiency. He'd promised efficiency. I changed out of my wedding dress into silk pajamas, took down my hair, and tried to process the fact that I was married. Actually married. To Grayson Blackwell. A knock on my door made me jump. "It's me," Grayson's voice came through. "Can I come in?" "That depends. Are you armed?" "Just with champagne and 2 glasses. Thought we should at least acknowledge what happened today." I opened the door and immediately regretted it. He'd changed into dark sweatpants and a t-shirt that clung to muscles I had been trying very hard not to notice. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd just showered, and he looked unfairly good for someone who should be my sworn enemy. "You look," he started, his eyes traveling over my silk pajamas. "Don't," I warned. "Comfortable," he finished with a smirk. I was going to say comfortable. Liar. I'm learning from the best. He held up the champagne bottle. "Truce for tonight? No fighting, no sarcasm. Just 2 people who got married today trying to figure out what comes next." I should have said no. Should have kept my walls up. But something about the way he looked at me, hopeful, uncertain, almost shy, made me step aside. "1 glass. Then you go back to your wing." "Deal." He poured the champagne, and we sat on opposite ends of my new sofa, a careful distance between us. "Mr." Darcy immediately jumped up and positioned himself between us like a furry chaperone. "To the strangest wedding day in history, Grayson toasted. And the most unexpected, I added, clinking my glass against his. We drank in silence for a moment, and I realized this was the first time we'd been truly alone since the ceremony. No family, no guests, no performance required. That kiss, Grayson said suddenly, not looking at me. Was it just for show? My heart hammered. What do you think? I think, he said carefully, that if it was just for show, you're a much better actress than I gave you credit for. And if it wasn't just for show? He finally looked at me, and the heat in his eyes nearly scorched me. Then we have a problem. Because our arrangement was supposed to be simple, clean, no complications. And attraction is a complication. Massive complication. He set down his glass, ran a hand through his hair. I wasn't prepared for you, Vivian. For how you'd look in that dress, or how you'd feel in my arms, or... He stopped himself. This wasn't part of the plan. Plans change, I said softly. You said it yourself. Maybe this could be an adventure. Adventures are dangerous. So are you, apparently. He laughed, but it sounded pained. You have no idea. Mr. Darcy chose that moment to abandon his post, jumping down and stalking away with his tail high, clearly disgusted with both of us. The space where the cat had been suddenly felt very small. I should go, Grayson said, but he didn't move. You should, I agreed, but I didn't want him to. Vivian. He shifted closer, just slightly, and I could smell his cologne, cedar and something darker. Tell me to leave. Tell me this is a terrible idea. This is a terrible idea, I whispered, but I was leaning toward him too. The worst, he agreed, his hand coming up to cup my face. We'll regret this. Absolutely. Say stop, and I'll stop. But I didn't say stop. Instead, I closed the distance and kissed him. If the wedding kiss was fire, this was an inferno. His hands tangled in my hair, my fingers gripped his shirt, and everything else disappeared. The arrangement, the contract, the logical reasons why this was a mistake. None of it mattered. Bedroom, I gasped between kisses. Are you sure? Even in his hunger, he was asking, giving me an out. Grayson, I pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. Shut up and take me to bed. The smile he gave me was pure sin. Yes, wife. He lifted me like I weighed nothing, and I wrapped my legs around his waist as he carried me the few steps to the bed. We fell onto the silk sheets in a tangle of limbs and racing hearts, and when he looked down at me, something shifted in his expression. We're really doing this, he said, almost wonderingly. Having second thoughts. About 1,000, but I'm not stopping unless you want me to. I pulled him down for another kiss, and that was answer enough. Later, much later, I lay in the dark with Grayson's arm around me, his chest rising and falling against my back. My new husband. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it felt surprisingly right. Still hate me? He murmured into my hair. More than ever, I lied. Good. Wouldn't want things to get boring. I turned to face him, and even in the darkness, I could see his eyes gleaming. This doesn't change our agreement, I said, needing to establish some ground rules before my heart got any more involved. 2.5 years, then we're done. Something flickered across his face. Hurt? Before he masked it. Of course, business arrangement. With benefits, apparently. Grayson? It's fine, Vivian. He kissed my forehead, but it felt like goodbye. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we start figuring out how to live together without killing each other. He started to pull away and panic seized me. Stay, I blurted out. Just for tonight. Stay. He stilled, then pulled me closer. Just for tonight. But as I drifted off to sleep in my husband's arms, I knew I was lying to both of us. This was never going to be just for tonight. This was never going to be just business. And that terrified me more than anything. I woke up alone. The space beside me was cold, the sheets undisturbed, like Grayson had never been there at all. Except I could still smell his cologne on the pillow, could still feel the ghost of his touch on my skin. A note sat on the nightstand. Had to handle something at the office. Coffee's ready in the kitchen. G professional. Distant. Like last night never happened. Perfect. That's what I wanted, right? Keep things simple. Don't catch feelings. So, why did my chest ache? I found Mr. Darcy in the kitchen, somehow already having claimed the sunniest spot on the marble counter. The coffee maker was indeed on, and beside it was a travel mug with another note. Remembered you take it black with 2 sugars. Gee, damn him for being observant. I was halfway through my coffee when my phone exploded with messages. Sloane had created a group chat called Spill the Tea Sis. Sloane. So? Sloane. Did you kill him or kiss him? Sloane. Both? Sloane. If you don't answer in 5 minutes, I'm coming over. I typed, I'm alive. He's alive. That's all you're getting. Sloane. Boring. Mom wants to know if you're happy. Was I happy? I'd spent the night in the arms of a man I was supposed to hate, who made me feel things I wasn't ready to name, and who apparently fled the scene before sunrise. Me. Tell Mom I'm fine. Penthouse is nice. Cat approves. Sloane. Liar. But okay. Love you, Mrs. Blackwell. Mrs. Blackwell. The name still felt foreign, like wearing someone else's clothes. Grayson didn't come home until after 8. I was curled up in the library, my favorite room in the entire penthouse, with Mr. Darcy and a novel I wasn't actually reading. You found the library, he said from the doorway, and I jumped. He looked exhausted, tie loosened, jacket over his arm, but still unfairly attractive. How was that fair? It's the only room in this museum that feels human, I replied, carefully neutral. How was work? Tedious, necessary. He moved into the room but kept his distance. We need to talk about last night. My stomach dropped. Do we? Vivian. Because I thought we agreed it was just physical. Chemistry. Doesn't have to mean anything. He flinched, and I hated myself for it. Right, he said flatly. Just physical. Got it. Grayson, I'm going to change. There's dinner in the kitchen if you're hungry. Good night, Vivian. He was gone before I could respond, and the library suddenly felt very cold. 3 days passed in awkward dance. We orbited each other like planets, close enough to feel the pull, careful never to collide. He left for work early, came home late. I explored the penthouse, set up my home office, pretended my heart didn't race every time I heard his key in the lock. On Thursday evening, I found him in the kitchen, cooking. You cook? I blurted out. He glanced up, surprise crossing his features. You say that like I suggested I practice witchcraft. I just assumed you had a private chef. Or survived on takeout and arrogance. The arrogance is quite filling, actually. He returned to chopping vegetables with surprising skill. But yes, I cook. My father taught me. Said a man who can't feed himself isn't really independent. There it was again. That glimpse of something deeper, something real beneath the polished surface. What are you making? I moved closer, drawn despite myself. Pasta primavera. It's simple, but... He paused, looking almost embarrassed. I noticed you haven't been eating much. Thought maybe you were tired of ordering in. He'd noticed. Of course he'd noticed. I can help, I offered. You cook? Don't sound so shocked. I'm full of surprises, Blackwell. I'm learning that, he said softly, handing me a knife. You can handle the tomatoes. We worked in comfortable silence, moving around each other in the kitchen with unexpected synchronicity. He showed me how he liked the basil torn, not cut. I showed him my grandmother's trick for perfect garlic, and somewhere between the chopping and stirring, the awkwardness began to fade. This is nice, I said without thinking, then immediately wanted to take it back. But Grayson smiled, really smiled, the kind that crinkled his eyes. It is, isn't it? Almost like we're a normal couple. Except we're not. Except we're not, he agreed. But he didn't sound convinced. Dinner was delicious. We ate at the kitchen island instead of the formal dining room, trading stories about our worst cooking disasters. He told me about nearly burning down his first apartment trying to impress a date. I confessed to once mistaking salt for sugar in a cake for my mother's birthday. She still ate it, I laughed. The entire slice. Said it was the most memorable cake she'd ever had. "That's love," Grayson said, and something in his voice made me look up. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't read, soft, almost tender, completely at odds with the cool businessman from 3 days ago. "Grayson." My phone rang. Mom's ringtone. "I should take this," I said, grateful and disappointed in equal measure. But the moment I answered, I knew something was wrong. My mother's nurse was calling from the hospital. Mom had collapsed. They were running tests. The phone slipped from my hand. "Vivian?" Grayson was beside me instantly. "What happened?" "My mom. Hospital. I need to—" I couldn't form complete sentences, panic clawing at my throat. Okay, we're going right now." He was already grabbing his keys, his jacket, his hand finding mine and squeezing. "Which hospital?" "Mount Sinai. But I can—" "We're going together. Come on." He didn't let go of my hand the entire elevator ride down. Didn't let go in the car. And when we rushed into the hospital, and I finally saw my mother, pale and small in the hospital bed, but alive, thank God alive, he stood beside me, solid and steady. "I'm fine, sweetheart," Mom insisted, her voice weak but determined. "Just a reaction to the new medication. They're adjusting the dosage." But I couldn't stop shaking, couldn't stop thinking about how close. "Come here," Grayson said quietly, pulling me into the hallway. "She's okay. You heard the doctor. She's going to be fine." "But what if she wasn't? What if—" The tears came suddenly, unstoppable. "This is all my fault. The stress of the wedding, the—" "Stop!" His hands framed my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. "This is not your fault. Medical complications happen. You didn't cause this. You don't understand? Then help me understand." His thumbs wiped away my tears with such gentleness I nearly broke. "Talk to me, Vivian. Really talk to me." And standing there in that sterile hospital hallway, with my husband's hands on my face and my mother recovering behind a door, I realized something terrifying. I didn't want to keep him at arm's length anymore. I wanted to let him in. "I'm scared," I whispered, "of losing her, of this marriage, of you, me, of what you make me feel, how much I want to trust you, how much I'm starting to—" I stopped, unable to say the word that was growing louder in my heart every day. But Grayson understood. I could see it in his eyes. "I know," he said softly. "I'm scared too. Because this stopped being fake about 3 days ago, and I have no idea what we're doing anymore. Grayson, but I know one thing." He pulled me close, and I let myself sink into his warmth. "Whatever this is, whatever we're becoming, I'm not running. Not anymore. I'm here, Vivian. For as long as you'll have me." I buried my face in his chest, breathing him in, letting myself have this moment of weakness. 2.5 years, I mumbled into his shirt. "Or maybe forever," he replied. "If you're brave enough. Forever." The word should have terrified me. Instead, it sounded like hope. The article appeared 3 weeks into our marriage, courtesy of Manhattan's most vicious gossip columnist. "The Sterling-Blackwell Union. Love match or business transaction?" I was having coffee in the kitchen when Grayson slammed his tablet on the counter, jaw tight with fury. "Have you seen this?" he demanded. I scanned the article, my stomach sinking with each paragraph. Anonymous sources claiming our marriage was arranged to save the Sterling fortune. Photos of us at charity events with analysis of our staged affection. Speculation about when we'd divorce and how much the settlement would be. The worst part? It was all true. "It's gossip," I said, trying to sound unbothered. "Let it blow over." "Let it blow over?" His voice was dangerously quiet. Vivienne, this affects both our companies. Investors are already calling, asking if Blackwell Industries made a bad deal. If I bought a failing company along with a wife who can't stand me. That's not... I stopped, because 3 weeks ago, it would have been true. What? He challenged. Not true. You yourself said this was just business. 2.5 years and done, remember? Grayson, no, you're right. We should stick to the plan. He grabbed his jacket with sharp movements. I have meetings all day. There's a charity gala tonight. Black tie, starts at 8. We need to be seen together, looking madly in love. Can you manage that? The coldness in his voice stung more than it should. I'll manage, I said quietly. He left without another word, and the penthouse felt cavernous in his absence. I spent the day attempting to work, but my mind kept returning to the article, to the truth buried in those malicious words, to the fact that somewhere along the way, this had stopped being fake for me, but maybe not for him. Maybe Grayson was just better at playing the part. My phone rang. Sloan. Have you seen... Yes, I cut her off. I've seen it. Viv, it's brutal. Are you okay? Was I? I'd entered this marriage with walls up, prepared to endure 2.5 years of civil cohabitation. Instead, I'd fallen for my husband, actually fallen, and now I was terrified he was still playing a role. I don't know what's real anymore, I admitted. Then ask him, Sloan said simply. Talk to the man you married. And if he says it's still just business? Then at least you'll know. But Viv, the way he looks at you? That's not fake. Trust me. The gala was at the Metropolitan Museum, dripping with old money and older secrets. I wore emerald green, Grayson's favorite color, though I'd never told him I knew that. He was waiting by the car, devastating in his tuxedo, and when he saw me, something flickered in his eyes before the mask returned. You look beautiful, he said formally, offering his arm. Thank you. I took it, hating the stiffness between us. Grayson, about this morning. Not now. We have a performance to give. Performance. The word cut like glass. Inside we smiled for cameras, made small talk with donors, played the perfect couple. His hand on my waist felt possessive. His laugh at my jokes sounded genuine. When we danced, he held me close enough that I could feel his heartbeat. All fake? Or real? You're tense, he murmured as we swayed to the music. So are you. I have reason to be. My wife can barely look at me. That's not... I forced myself to meet his eyes. I don't know how to do this, Grayson. How to be married to you when I don't know what's real and what's for show. Something raw crossed his face. You really don't know? How could I? This morning you acted like I was a bad investment. Now you're holding me like... I stopped, unable to finish. Like what, Vivienne? His voice was low, urgent. Like I'm falling in love with my wife? Like every day it gets harder to remember this was supposed to be temporary? My breath caught. You don't mean that. Don't I? He pulled me closer, and I could see the truth burning in his amber eyes. I've been in love with you since you refused to shake my hand at that gala. Since you looked at me like I was just another arrogant rich boy and walked away. Do you know how rare that is? To have someone see past the money and the name and still find you lacking? Grayson, I married you thinking I could keep it business, that I could have you in my life without wanting more. But then you moved into my home, and you brought your horrible cat and your sharp wit and your terrible morning mood, and suddenly business wasn't enough. Suddenly 2.5 years felt like torture because it had an expiration date. Tears burned my eyes. Why didn't you tell me? Because you made it clear this was temporary. You negotiated divorce terms on our wedding day, Vivienne. You promised no feelings, no expectations. What was I supposed to say? Sorry, I broke our contract by falling for you. You idiot, I choked out. You beautiful, infuriating idiot. Excuse me? I'm in love with you too. The words burst out, loud enough that nearby couples turned to stare. I've been trying not to be, trying to keep my walls up, but you keep doing things like remembering my coffee order and cooking me dinner and holding my hand in hospitals, and He kissed me. Right there in the middle of the dance floor, in front of Manhattan's elite, he kissed me like I was oxygen, and he was drowning. When we broke apart, the ballroom had gone silent. Then someone started clapping. Then someone else. Then the entire room erupted in applause. "Well," Grayson said, slightly dazed, "I think we just answered the gossip columnist's question." I laughed through my tears. "You're insane." "About you? Absolutely." He wiped my tears with his thumbs. "No more contracts. No more expiration dates. Just us, figuring this out together, real and messy and terrifying." "What about the 2.5 years? Negotiate a new term?" His smile was pure hope. "How does forever sound?" "Reckless, impulsive, completely illogical." "And?" I pulled him down for another kiss, pouring everything I'd been holding back into it. When I finally pulled away, I whispered against his lips, "And absolutely perfect." The photographer from the Times captured the moment, two people who'd married as enemies, discovering they'd become something infinitely more dangerous, partners, lovers, friends, forever. Later, in the car ride home, Grayson laced his fingers through mine. "Your grandmother is going to be insufferable about this," he said. "She'll claim she planned it all along." She probably did. Eleanor Sterling always has a long game. Speaking of long games, he raised my hand to his lips. "I should confess something." "Oh no, what? The investment in Korea? The fraud that bankrupted your family?" He looked almost sheepish. "I may have helped it along." I stared at him. "You what?" "I didn't cause it, but when I discovered it was happening, I might have ensured it happened faster. Made sure your family had no choice but to accept help. My help, specifically." "You manipulated my family's financial crisis to force me to marry you?" "When you say it like that, it sounds really bad." "Grayson Blackwell, in my defense, I was desperately in love and completely deranged. Are you angry?" I should have been furious, should have been outraged. Instead, I started laughing, really laughing, until tears streamed down my face. "You're absolutely insane," I managed between gasps. "Is that a yes to forever, then?" I looked at my husband, my real, actual chosen husband, and felt my heart overflow. "Yes, you magnificent disaster. Yes to forever." The smile he gave me could have powered the entire city. And as we drove through Manhattan toward home, our home, I realized that sometimes the best love stories start with a lie and end with the truest thing you've ever known. Sometimes you have to marry your enemy to discover they were your destiny all along. 6 months after the gala confession, I woke up to Mr. Darcy sitting on my chest, staring at me with judgmental green eyes. "You weigh 1,000 pounds, I groaned, trying to move him. He dug his claws in slightly, not enough to hurt, just enough to make a point. "He's punishing you for last night," Grayson mumbled from beside me, his arm tightening around my waist. "We kept him awake." "We did not," I started, then remembered. "Okay, we might have been a little loud." "A little?" He opened one amber eye, smirking. "The neighbors 3 floors down probably heard you." I smacked his chest, laughing. "That's your fault for being so." "So what, wife?" He pulled me closer, nuzzling my neck. "Finish that sentence." "Insufferable," I said, but my breathless tone ruined the insult. That's my favorite thing about you, too. How you pretend to hate me while—" My phone rang. Sloane's ringtone, the Kill Bill whistle, because she thought she was hilarious. "Don't answer it," Grayson groaned, but something in my gut told me to pick up. "Sloane, it's 6 in the morning. Viv." Her voice was strange, tight with excitement and something else. "You need to come home, now. It's about the company. My blood went cold. What happened? Not on the phone. Just come, both of you. The Sterling mansion looked the same as always, imposing, elegant, full of history. But when my father opened the door, he looked 10 years younger. Dad? I stepped inside, Grayson's hand finding mine automatically. What's going on? Conference room, he said, grinning like a madman. Everyone's waiting. Everyone turned out to be my entire family, plus several lawyers I recognized, and… Marcus Chen? Grayson said, surprised. What are you doing here? Marcus Chen was one of the most respected financial investigators in the country. What was he doing in our family conference room at dawn? Mr. Blackwell, Mrs. Blackwell. Marcus nodded to us both. I have news about the Korean investment fraud. My stomach dropped. That fraud, the one that had destroyed our family fortune and forced our marriage. We found him, Marcus continued. The man who orchestrated it, and we've recovered most of the funds. Additionally, the investigation revealed he'd defrauded 17 other families. The criminal charges and asset seizures mean… He smiled. The Sterling family will receive full restitution plus damages. Approximately $350 million. The room spun. What? I whispered. You're solvent again, Marcus said simply. Better than solvent. The Sterling fortune is restored. My father was crying. Grandma Eleanor looked shocked into silence. Sloane was grinning like Christmas came early, and I felt… numb. Because restored fortune meant we didn't need the Blackwell money anymore. Meant the original reason for our marriage no longer existed. Meant… Excuse me, I said abruptly, standing. I need air. I fled to the garden, my heart racing, panic clawing at my throat. This was good news, great news. Our family was saved. Mom's treatments were secure. Everything was perfect. So why did I feel like my world was ending? Vivian. Grayson's voice came from behind me. Talk to me. The money, I said, not turning around. It's back. All of it. I heard. So we don't… The marriage contract. The financial terms. They don't… I couldn't finish the sentence. He turned me to face him, and his eyes were impossibly gentle. Is that what you think? He asked softly. That I'm only here because of the contract? I don't know. 6 months ago, you manipulated my family's crisis to force this marriage. Now the crisis is resolved, and you think I'll leave? He cupped my face, making me meet his eyes. Vivian, that contract burned in our fireplace 4 months ago. Remember? You threw it in yourself after too much wine and a very passionate argument about whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie. I did remember. Vaguely. Through champagne-soaked nostalgia. But there is no but, no clause, no loophole, no escape hatch. I'm here because I choose to be, because I love you, because the idea of spending even one day without your terrible morning mood and your vindictive cat and your laugh that sounds like sunshine. His voice cracked. That's not a life I want anymore. Grayson, marry me, he said suddenly. I blinked. We're already married. I know, but marry me again. For real this time. No contracts, no family pressure, no financial crisis. Just you and me, choosing each other because we want to, because we can't imagine not doing this forever. Tears spilled down my cheeks. You're insane. About you? Always. He pulled a small box from his pocket. When had he grabbed that? And opened it to reveal a stunning diamond ring, completely different from the ostentatious one he'd given me originally. This one was delicate, perfect, utterly me. I've been carrying this for weeks, waiting for the right moment. Didn't expect it to be in your family garden at 6:30 in the morning, but… Yes, I interrupted, laughing through tears. Yes, you ridiculous man. Yes to marrying you again. Yes to choosing this every single day. He slid the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly, and kissed me with such tenderness I forgot how to breathe. I have a confession, I whispered against his lips. Should I be worried? I may have already planned our vow renewal for next month at the Botanical Gardens. Sloane's been helping. His laugh rumbled through both of us. Have you really? I was terrified to tell you because what if you said no? What if you regretted us? What if... He kissed me quiet. Never. Not possible. You're stuck with me, Sterling Blackwell. Is that my name now? Both? Seems fair. I'll take yours too. Grayson Sterling Blackwell. Has a nice ring to it. Your business associates will have a stroke. Let them. You're worth it. We stood there in the garden, holding each other as the sun rose over Manhattan, and I realized something fundamental had shifted. We'd started as enemies forced together by circumstance. We'd become lovers by accident. But now, finally, we were choosing each other on purpose. Come on, Grayson said eventually. Your family is probably wondering if we ran away. Would you run away with me? To the ends of the earth, Vivian, but preferably after breakfast. I'm starving. I laughed, lacing my fingers through his as we walked back inside. You know what the best part of all this is? What? We get to prove everyone wrong. Everyone who said this marriage was fake, that we'd never last, that love like this doesn't exist. I squeezed his hand. We get to prove them all spectacularly wrong. That does sound satisfying, he agreed. Very on brand for both of us. And back in the conference room, my family took one look at our joined hands and new ring and erupted in cheers. Even Mr. Chen smiled. I take it the financial news was well received? He asked dryly. The best news we could have gotten, I said, looking at Grayson. Because now we know this, I gestured between us, is real, built on love, not necessity, and that's priceless. Grandma Eleanor raised her champagne glass, because of course she had champagne ready at dawn. To Vivian and Grayson, she declared, who took the worst possible beginning and created the most beautiful ending. To new beginnings, my father added. To love, my mother said softly, her eyes shining. To forever, Grayson whispered, just for me. And as we toasted to futures and second chances and love that conquered every odd, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Marrying my enemy was the best decision I never wanted to make. And choosing him every day after? That was the easiest choice in the world. 3 years later. The Brooklyn Botanical Garden was perfect in May. Cherry blossoms in full bloom, the air sweet with spring, and 300 guests gathered to watch two people who were already married get married again. I still think this is excessive, I said, adjusting Grayson's bow tie for the third time. We're already legally bound. Yes, but now we're doing it in front of God, nature, and your grandmother's entire social registry, he replied, catching my hands. Stop fidgeting. I'm perfect. You're insufferable, and you love me anyway. He kissed my knuckles, then froze. Wait, are you wearing the unicorn pajamas under your dress? Maybe. For luck. His laugh was everything. Warm, genuine, completely free. That's why I'm marrying you. Again. Technically, it's a vow renewal. Semantics, wife. A knock interrupted us. Sloane poked her head in, now sporting purple hair and a business degree from Columbia. 5 minutes, you two. And Viv? Mom wants to see you before you walk down the aisle. Again. I found my mother in the garden's rose pavilion, looking healthier than she had in years. The new treatment protocol, funded by our restored fortune and Grayson's obsessive research, had given us the miracle we'd needed. My darling girl, she said, pulling me close. Look at you. Absolutely radiant. Mom, don't cry. You'll make me cry, and I have a whole ceremony to get through. Too late. She dabbed at her eyes. I'm just so happy. When this all started, I was so worried you were sacrificing yourself for us. But you found love in the most unexpected place. Turns out the universe has a twisted sense of humor, I said, smiling through my own tears. Or perfect timing. She squeezed my hands. Your father would have loved to walk you down the aisle again, but since he did it the first time... Grandma Eleanor insisted on the honor this time, I finished laughing. Said she orchestrated this whole thing and deserves recognition. She's not entirely wrong, Mom admitted, though I suspect Grayson's manipulation played a bigger role. A role he's still apologizing for, 3 years later. Good. Keep him apologetic. It's good for husbands. The ceremony was everything our first wedding wasn't. Intimate, joyful, chosen. When Grandma Eleanor walked me down the aisle in her best couture, I saw Grayson waiting at the altar, and my heart did that stupid flutter it had been doing since the night he cooked me dinner. He looked devastating in a navy suit that matched his eyes' amber flecks, and when I reached him, he whispered, "You're wearing the dress." The battle-ready wedding dress from our first ceremony, altered slightly, but still unmistakably the same. "I thought it was fitting," I whispered back, "since we started as a battle and ended as a love story." Our officiant, a friend from college who'd watched our entire chaotic journey, cleared his throat. "We're here to celebrate Vivian and Grayson, who prove that sometimes the best love stories don't start with love at all. They start with stubbornness, pride, and a public handshake refusal that became legendary." Laughter rippled through the crowd. 3 years ago, these two married out of necessity. Today they renew their vows out of choice, and that makes all the difference. Grayson went first, pulling out a handwritten note card. "Vivian Sterling Blackwell," he began, and I loved how our hyphenated name sounded on his lips. "3 years ago, I stood at an altar and promised to try, to see past my pride and see you. Today I stand here having succeeded beyond my wildest dreams, because I don't just see you, I know you. I know you're a nightmare before coffee, that you cry at dog adoption commercials but pretend you don't, that you reorganize my bookshelves alphabetically when you're anxious, and that you talk to Mr. Darcy like he's a small, furry therapist." More laughter. I was definitely crying now. "I know that you're brilliant, fierce, stubborn, and the best thing that ever happened to me. So today, I vow not just to try, but to succeed, to love you every single day, even when you're reorganizing my spices by color, to be your partner, your friend, your home, for all my days, Vivian. No contracts, no conditions, just choice." I had to take a moment before I could speak. "Grayson Sterling Blackwell," I finally managed. 3 years ago, I thought I knew exactly what this would be. A prison sentence, a necessary evil, 2.5 years of tolerance. I paused, smiling through tears. I've never been happier to be wrong. You've shown me that love isn't about perfection. It's about finding someone whose imperfections fit perfectly with yours. Someone who lets you be messy and complicated and difficult, and loves you harder for it. His eyes were suspiciously bright. "Today I vow to choose you. Every morning when I wake up cranky. Every evening when we argue about dinner. Every moment in between, I vow to love your ambition, your loyalty, your terrible jokes. I vow to be your safe place, your adventure, your home. For all my days, Grayson, not because I have to, because I want to." We exchanged new rings, matching bands engraved with the date of our first wedding, not this one. A reminder that even messy beginnings could become beautiful. "I now pronounce you, still married," our officiant announced. "You may kiss your wife, again." And Grayson did, dipping me dramatically while the crowd cheered, and Mr. Darcy, who Sloane was holding in the front row, yowled his disapproval. The reception was in full swing when my father pulled me aside for a dance. "Happy, Princess?" he asked. "Deliriously," I admitted. "Though if you'd told me 3 years ago that forcing me to marry Grayson Blackwell would be the best thing you ever did, I'd have had you committed. Your grandmother might have had us all committed," he laughed. "But she was right. Sometimes we need a push toward our destiny." "Don't tell her that. Her ego can't handle more inflation." Speaking of Grandma Eleanor, she was holding court near the Champagne Tower, regaling anyone who'd listen with the story of how she'd engineered the love match of the century. Grayson appeared at my elbow, offering his hand. "May I steal my wife?" "Which time's wife?" I teased. "First wedding or second?" "Both. All of them. Every version of you. We swayed together as the sun set over Brooklyn, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. I have news, Grayson said quietly. Good news, or I manipulated another family crisis news? Funny. No, good news. That property in the Hamptons we looked at, I bought it. You what? For us, for Summers, for... He paused, suddenly nervous. For our family. When, we decide to expand beyond just us and one judgmental cat. My heart stopped, then galloped. Are you saying... I'm saying I want forever with you to include everything. The penthouse, the summer house, maybe someday tiny humans who inherit your stubbornness and my inability to back down from a challenge. There'll be nightmares, I said, smiling so hard my face hurt. Absolutely terrible, he agreed. I can't wait. I kissed him as the last rays of sunlight painted us gold, and somewhere in the crowd, I heard Sloane shout, "Get a room! Again!" But we didn't need a room. We had a home. We had each other. We had a love story that started with hatred and ended with forever. And as Grayson spun me under the cherry blossoms, with our families watching and Mr. Darcy plotting our demise, I thought about that girl who'd refused to shake his hand 3 years ago. She'd been so sure she knew what she wanted. She'd been so spectacularly, wonderfully wrong. Thank you, I whispered against Grayson's chest. For what? For being insufferable enough to marry me twice. His laugh rumbled through both of us. Thank you for being stubborn enough to say yes, both times. I love you, Grayson Sterling Blackwell. I love you too, Vivian Sterling Blackwell. And we danced into our forever, 2 former enemies who discovered the greatest truth of all. Sometimes the person you're destined to love is the last person you'd ever expect. Sometimes hate is just love that hasn't figured itself out yet. And sometimes the most beautiful endings come from the messiest beginnings. Our story started with a forced marriage. It ended with a chosen forever. And every moment in between, pure magic. The end.